Welcome everyone to today's event. We are
Yo,
give people a few minutes to log on. And in the meantime, Pete, I,
yo,
I want to know, what is your favorite holiday tradition?
it's my favorite holiday tradition.
Yeah.
It's funny, as you might imagine, I have a list. I was at a holiday party yesterday, and someone was asking about like, what are your favorite things to do? I was like, well, I have a Google document. I can share it with you of favorite things to do in the San Francisco area for for the holidays. Probably our favorite thing to do is to take my son. I have a 4-year-old. Take him ice skating in San Francisco in Union Square. Um, so we have that calendared, right? Because calendar is destiny. So I'm in charge of booking that. I have the tickets all done, and it's all calendared out for this coming weekend. So it should be exciting. He's 4 now, so I wonder if he'll be able to like skate on his own, or they have these like penguin
Yeah.
like skate things that they hold on to. It's like the world's cutest thing. So we'll see. We'll see if he wants a penguin or not this year.
I remember when I would go skating, they had walkers with tennis balls on the bottom, and
There you
I
go.
I never didn't use them just because it was fun. Just like really fast on the rink. No, I'm not a good skater at all.
But given the fact that you're from Minnesota, I thought that you had to like ice skate to school.
Yeah, we had a pond in the backyard. So every year my dad would get the snowblower out and blow us a little rink back there. And we just had like a box of random sized skates. So you might wear 2 sets of socks and like a really big pair, or you're shoving your feet in. It worked every year. So I got a lot better once we started doing that.
I would imagine. There you go.
Well, I think we're going to get started now.
All right.
Welcome everyone to today's event, Moving the Needle Data-Driven One-on-Ones. Today's event is hosted by the team at Modern Sales Pros. For those of you who are not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest revenue leadership community for those in sales management, sales and rev ops, sales development, and related supporting disciplines. Our mission is to create an environment for our 20K and growing members to answer questions you'd struggle to solve on your own, help you see your own corners you might not even know about. We do that through great live sessions like this today, through our robust online forum, which if you're not a member, we will be adding you to that and you can experience the glory of it after this event.
Glorious.
Glorious. In the near future, we're going to have some in-person events. Those of you who aren't members, again, you'll be invited to join afterwards. Actually, talking about those in-person events, though, if you love the content here, you're going to love our upcoming summit. It's called the Mega SCO. It's the SCO or SKO you actually want to attend. So we'll be talking about people, processes, and technology to help uplevel your entire revenue organization for 2022. We have some incredible panels happening. Pete's going to be hosting a masterclass. We have a VC panel talking about tech investing. We have a CEO from who is also on Forbes 30 under 30 list, who's our keynote talking about scaling challenges and how to fix how to work on your own organization and what helped her go from seed to Series A to Series B. And we have our first in-person event, which is going to be happening on January 20th in San Francisco.
Woohoo.
Yeah. But enough about MSP. Today would not be possible without the sponsorship from the team at Atrium. So I'm going to hand it off to the founder of MSP, Pete Kazanjy, to say a few words about Atrium.
Yeah, hey folks. So in addition to being the founder of Modern Sales, I'm also the founder and CRO of Atrium. And so essentially, for those who don't know, Atrium makes data-driven sales management software, and the whole purpose of which is to help sales managers, so AE managers, SDR managers, CSM managers use metrics and data to improve rep and team performance, right? And the cool thing, one of the really neat things about Atrium is that it's super, super easy to set up. You just log in with your Salesforce credentials, and within 5 minutes, Atrium will show you how your reps are performing across a bajillion metrics. That's actually a technical term. So I'm really pumped to be talking here today about data-driven one-on-ones, because that's one of the key use cases that we help our clients with. But it's just like it's a discipline and a topic in and of itself, irrespective of what software you use to do that. So I'm really pumped about doing that today.
Awesome. Well, Just a quick note, Pete, actually, on that note, can you please give us a little background about yourself?
Sure. Why would I listen to this guy with the funny shirt? Well, because my shirt is funny. So yeah, as noted earlier, my name is Pete Kazanjy. I'm one of the founders of Atrium. I run our sales organization here. Sorry, started the company. I run our sales organization, but I've been around the block when it comes to modern sales and data-driven sales management. My previous software company was a company called TalentBin. It was acquired by Monster Worldwide in 2013, and at TalentBin, I went from being our kind of like business generalist founder to our first seller to our first sales manager and then our VP of sales. When we were acquired, we had about 20-person sales organization across SDR, AE, AM, CSM, and then once we were acquired, I was responsible for new product sales at Monster Worldwide. Subsequent to that, I ended up writing a book on early stage go-to-market called Founding Sales. It's like the handbook for $0 to $10 million in ARR. If you'd like one, hit me up. We can get you a copy. And then, of course, I started Modern Sales. So do a little bit of thinking about about sales excellence, about modern sales, about data-driven sales management, all that jazz. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. So today, again, we're going to be talking about moving the needle, data-driven rep 101s. I'm really excited to have an expert in this content. But first, housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
Excited to dive in. So let's first go into this housekeeping. Number one, this event is being recorded and you will get access to the recording plus the key resources on the previous events page of the MSP website. I'll send this out after the event. Secondly, if you have a question for our expert, Pete Kazanjy, please drop it in the Q&A function and we will be sure to get to them during the event. Lastly, I know some people are having audio issues. So if you can just try logging out and logging back in again, that should help. If not, just put it in the chat and I'll see what I can do as we get started. And then with that, Pete, I'd love to hand it off to you to get started.
Sure. Yeah, maybe you're not having audio problems. Maybe that's just like how I sound, perhaps. All right, Nora, I'm going to share my screen here. So hopefully I click the correct button. Did I do that okay?
Yep, looking good.
All right, party. Yeah, so we're going to talk about data-driven one-on-ones and how to run them, how to be good at them, and kind of like what things not to do in one-on-ones. But first, couple of things. Some resources that I've been a big fan of recently that kind of talk about a number of these things, kind of across the board. Some books, The Qualified Sales Leader by John McMahon, really fantastic about like enterprise sales and kind of John McMahon is the father of MedPick. Cracking the Sales Management Code by Jason Jordan is really fantastic when it comes to data-driven management and kind of focus on like how to get you your PhD in metrics. And then probably my favorite sales coaching book right now is The 5 Secrets of a Sales Coach by Corey Bray and Hillman Sori. Really just absolutely love this book because it's written as a parable, as a narrative. It's like super easy to fly through. It's kind of like fun. It's a novel, but it's really fantastic and kind of showing you how to do management, how to do sales management, which is something that not a lot of folks get kind of coached up on. If you want any of these resources along with a Coffees for Closers mug, you can just go ahead and click on the link that Nora dropped into the chat room there, and we'll get you dialed in with that. But these are some of my favorite resources right now, and I highly recommend them. So let's talk a little bit about data-driven management, especially as relates to one-on-ones. So first and foremost, people don't realize that excellent line management excellence is really kind of the crux of a high-performing sales organization. Gartner talks about it a little bit there, where high-performing managers drive all sorts of benefits a quarter higher rep productivity. You've got 3 times more likely that your reps are going to be top performers. You're going to retain your reps a lot better, which is really important, because if you're not retaining your reps, guess what? You don't have their street quota out there and they can't attain. If they're attriting, they can't attain, and good things like the reps do more work. And so if you think about the things that are required in order to do great sales management, there's actually a number of things that are kind of required. Yes, everyone does a good job around deal inspection and strategy, largely because people are just kind of like, people are prone to focusing on deals, but there's actually a lot more than that. There's tracking progress towards goals for reps. There's, of course, those one-on-ones. There's making sure that reps are ramping into band. And then there's identifying issues and kind of fixing those issues, getting ahead of things. And then the flip side of that is making sure to take what's driving top performance in your top performance, driving out performance, and generalizing that out to the rest of the team. Today, we're going to be talking about one-on-ones because they're really, really important. In fact, don't take it to me, take it from me, take it from Richard Harris, right? We actually hosted an event for our Atrium customers recently for Richard to give a boot camp on SDR management. But like one-on-ones are probably the most powerful tool when it comes to managing your team. But importantly, well-structured one-on-ones that bring data to bear, not kind of like, hey, how you doing one-on-ones? And so what we're going to be doing is kind of talking about what that looks like here. So what are some of the things that happen as a result of good one-on-ones? Well, you're building relationships and trust. You're having those good kind of like moments where you're having conversations. You're getting your reps to tell you what their challenges are, what their frustrations are. Conversely, this is the place where you can actually tell them what their challenges are, what you perceive their challenges to be, and you can coach them up on developing them by providing them ongoing feedback. The important thing is that by doing these things in a consistent fashion and getting ahead of things, again, usually from a data-driven standpoint, you can prevent larger issues, kind of like blow-ups down the line, and get ahead of those things. And all of this just drives accountability and better retention there. Kind of give you guys some examples of what a typical structure for a one-on-one might be. And then again, I have this like nice little handy dandy template here linked from the link from the slides here that you can use at home. We'll send these slides out after the fact if you're interested in them. But the way to kind of structure a one-on-one would be have it either calendared weekly or bi-weekly. I like to do my one-on-ones bi-weekly, so every other week. They're 30 minutes. Importantly, it's really important not to skip them, because I know that we can all get super busy. We think like, oh, okay, I'm going to skip this because I'm going to jump onto this closing call or what have you. You can move them, right? But don't skip them, right? Just move them back and forth a couple days, move them to an open spot in the calendar, but don't skip them, because if you start skipping your one-on-ones, you're going to kind of have the converse of all of these, right? So instead of these benefits, you're going to have the opposite of it. You're going to encounter larger issues. You're going to have a deficit of accountability, and you're going to drive attrition as opposed to driving retention. So don't skip them. Some examples of things to do there. One, it's always nice to have a space for rep topics. A lot of times people say like, oh, I like to make this the meeting for the rep. That's like an abdication of managerial responsibility. You should have space in there for rep topics, like, hey, what's on your mind? What's bugging you? What would you like to bring to the table? But they're not responsible for the agenda of the document, or sorry, the agenda of the meeting. That's you. That's why you get paid the big bucks as a manager. Things that you might want to be focused on within that one-on-one would be outstanding action items from the prior week or prior 2 weeks ago. Pipeline review or accounts engagement there, but importantly, you don't want that to be the totality of it. You'd want to be looking at activity levels and then also specific coaching areas. What I like to do is I actually split out pipeline review from one-on-one, so I can focus more purely on the coaching things. I actually have what we refer to as a deal strategy meeting that's like a half hour that happens every week, and that's essentially the space on the calendar where I talk about where I talk about deals or have reps bring the 2, 3, 4, 5 deals that they want help with. And what that does is that actually gives me a lot more space in my one-on-ones to be focused on coaching and be focused on kind of these other higher leverage things, as opposed to constantly being in the weeds and on deals, as opposed to improving the rep, which is a higher leverage thing to do. So that's how to do one-on-ones. So then why would we want to use data? These are some of the reasons why using data is so powerful. Importantly, the biggest thing is that using data and metrics is a great way to get leverage, right? What do I mean by that? Well, riding along on calls is low leverage, right? You never know if you're going to be on the right call. You're probably wasting most of your time there, kind of just sitting there spaced out doing email. Similarly, like listening to hours and hours of calls is also low leverage. Being able to zoom in on the calls that you might need to listen to is like, hey, this rep has a problem in discovery, or this rep has a problem in closing, as indicated by conversion rates. That is actually much higher leverage. Closing deals for your reps is low leverage. As attractive as it might be, and this is like a failure mode that junior managers also oftentimes succumb to, is having been a rep previously and maybe a high performing rep. You're used to closing deals, or you like that's the kind of the muscle that you have most developed there. But the problem is that there's only one of you, and so if you're trying to be a super rep and close deals for your reps, unfortunately that's not nearly as high a leverage as getting every single one of your reps to be 10% better, 5% better, 10% better, 15% better, versus you being on every single one of their calls, whether there's 6 of them, 8 of them, or 10 of them, because there's like no way to do that. And then importantly, like recurring deal inspection only shows you a deal by deal snapshot. So if you're only looking at deals, you kind of like lose the forest for the trees, if you will, where what's going on with this deal? What's going on with this deal? What's going on with this deal? You may miss the fact that if you zoom out, holy mackerel, this rep's problem is that their average selling price is 30% lower than the other 10 reps on their team. That would indicate the biggest area of potential improvement for that rep would be raising his or her average selling price, which if you're in every single little deal, you would miss that by not zooming out. And as a result, and then doing that for each different rep. This rep has a problem with their average selling price. This rep has an activity problem. This rep has a pipeline hygiene problem. This rep right here has an improvement area around opportunity conversion rates out of discovery. But again, if you're in the deals, you're never going to see that up here and understand where to zoom into and fix things. And so that's why using data in conjunction with those one-on-ones is so powerful, because it gets you leverage and it gets you out of the business of just kind of like listening to anecdata, like, oh, how are you feeling, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can do this, how we can implement using metrics and data in our one-on-ones. And so the example that I'm going to use here is for continuous improvement is a model called the UDO Loop, that was popularized by John Boyd, who was a fighter pilot and Air Force leader in the 1950s and 60s, which is kind of predicated on this notion of like what we're doing is we're constantly like looping back, like consuming information, making decisions based on that information, and then acting in reaction to that information, and then looping back again to observe again and see if our actions impacted things the way that we had wanted to. In his case, it was focused on dogfighting and kind of fighter pilots, but it's actually something that can be used in any system where you're trying to do continuous improvement and you're reacting to information that's present in the world. And so how that works in sales management is pretty straightforward. Without data, the approach is kind of like, oh man, I didn't see that. This rep misses their bookings number. This SDR doesn't hit their quarterly ops created issue. Why is that? Okay, well, I guess I'll ask some questions. I don't have a hypothesis about it, so I'm gonna have to ask things and talk about and potentially be in the realm of anecdata, man, okay, well, I have partial information there. How do I know if I'm right? Like, it's hard for me to make a prescription there. Man, I'm just not going to act. And so this is something that I'm sure a lot of folks can kind of empathize with, is like making decisions under uncertainty with not much without much data can be very tough, and you can get you into a situation where you just don't act and just kind of kick the can down the road. And so the better approach, of course, is using metrics and using data. It's more along the lines of things like, hey, you know what? There's something weird going on over here. This rep's win rate is down. This rep's ASP is down. Or, man, this rep's this rep's pipe hygiene metrics are way up. What's going on over there? Okay, let me dig into that. This rep's untouched opportunities or stuck opportunities is substantially higher than everybody else's. Why is that? Okay, well, are they not doing enough activity? Let's go ahead and look at their emails and account engagement. No, they're doing a lot of activity. That's weird. Okay, well, let's look and see if they're overloaded from an opportunity ownership standpoint. Oh my God, they have twice as many ops as everybody else. Okay, cool. That's what's wrong. Great. Now let's fix that. Hey, Bobby, we need you to close out all of your old dead ops. Here are the ones that have been stuck the longest. Also, hey, SDR team, we're going to put Bobby on an op diet over here. He's not allowed to have any new op inflow for the next 2 weeks until we get his opportunity ownership in a more in a more reasonable level, right? And so that's how, like, this is what we want, right? Being able to do that, and then we loop back again in order to fix that. And so this is kind of what that ends up looking like in practice, where what we end up doing is we'll create an agenda for our one-on-one. We'll create some assets that go along with that, probably some reporting, and we'll have that scheduled. And then what we do is we do this loop that we're just kind of talking about. So the manager reviews the data and the assets and identifies the issues, kind of like what I was just talking about with Bobby's grody pipeline management. We prep some questions and some coaching. We have that conversation with the rep. We align on potential next actions. We agree on those next actions, and then lo and behold, we loop back again, right? We loop back again to that one-on-one, and in order to make sure that the hypothesis of, hey, I think that this is the root cause problem of this pipe hygiene issue right here. We took these actions. Let's go ahead and see if that pipe hygiene has remediated as indicated by the metric that we're looking to solve there. So let's talk about how we can systematize this. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to systematize observation, right? And so the way that we do that is just by making sure that we have the assets in hand. These are the things that we want to pay attention to on a recurring basis. And so what we want to do there is, generally speaking, the way that you would approach that is you use reports, or you use dashboards for that. The way to kind of think about a report is just like, we're trying to answer a question with a report, like how many ops have the SDRs created so far this month? Or in the case of Bobby earlier, how many opportunities does the entire AE team on a rep by rep basis have in pipe right now? Right, that would be answering a single question, like how much do they have in pipe right now? And then we can use that information to say, whoa, Bobby's bar is twice as high as everybody else's. Similarly, a dashboard would be a collection of questions that we're going to answer for a given point of consumption, a given point, like a one-on-one dashboard. Or, hey, now is the time where we look at how our AEs are ramping, and we use a ramping dashboard for that, and we look at that on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. But these are different things, right? There's the one-on-one dashboard, there's the ramping dashboard, there's the pipe hygiene dashboard. Oftentimes the problem that organizations will have is they'll put together this like gigantic like kitchen sink thing, which is like you're lost within. And so what we want to do is we want to have the set of questions that we care about for that point in time put together in that dashboard. And then importantly, we need to make sure that we actually review it. Similarly, it's a good thing to have multiple views per metric, not like a bajillion different ones, but to use the example earlier about Bobby and his grody pipeline, it might be something like, here's one tile in a dashboard where it's how many opportunities does each AE own right now, that this moment in time, and then there might be a tile next to that that shows opportunity ownership over time, right? So those 5 AEs or those 10 AEs and their opportunity ownership as a trend chart, as a trend graph over the last 6 months. And we can see, oh, that's where Bobby started getting way more opportunities than everybody else. Or alternatively, like, oh man, Bobby's always had this problem. Man, I should have gotten ahead of this. I hope my VP of sales doesn't find out that I wasn't managing him with with data this well. The point being that by having a kind of like a total and a trend can be very helpful in that regard. How would you how do you what do you use in order to do this process? Well, there's a couple different ways you can approach it. CRM reporting can be good. It's available right now. The problem, and it's nice and flexible. The problem is it's really time consuming to set up. You know, if you have sales operations assistants, that can be helpful there, but it can also be like very not fragile, but kind of like stuck in glass, not very agile for kind of like manipulating and kind of like digging in. Business intelligence software like a Looker or a Tableau can also be helpful as well. Again, very, very, very powerful, but can be kind of a challenge to set up. It can be slow, even harder for normal human beings like me. Like, hey, please don't tell my investors, but I actually don't know how to use Tableau at more than a kindergarten level. Shh, don't tell anyone. I am a very good Salesforce reporter though. And so, you know, it's difficult for sales managers, SDR managers, leaders, et cetera, to use that tooling. And if it's difficult to use that tooling, well, guess what? They're not going to do these things right here. And then there's a kind of an emerging category of software that we like to call data-driven sales management software, kind of like Atrium, that's like very quick to set up. It's a little bit less flexible, but importantly, it's extraordinarily user-friendly and easy for individuals to use, like normal human beings, like managers, to use. And then also it's automatically monitored, which is particularly compelling. And again, Atrium is an example of that. So how would we look at, like, what does this look like in practice? This is an example of kind of having the assets in hand and kind of two views of the same metric. Again, what's the question that we're trying to answer in this case? This is customer-facing meetings on a rep-by-rep basis, trailing 30 days, group by week. So in this case, the questions that we're answering here is like, hey, how many on an ongoing basis, how many meetings are my reps having? Is anybody declining? Is anybody like outperforming? Is there something we need to get ahead of there? And so by having this in place, we can kind of see that our buddy here in orange, Michael Darling, you know, he was kind of in the middle of the pack there and kind of like fell off a little bit, and then maybe we had a little chat with him in our one-on-one, and boom, you know, pop back up again. Similarly, Cyril up here has been outperformant the entire time for the trailing 90 days, the trailing 30 days. And so there might be a good example of like, man, what is the secret to this guy's success? Like, how was he able to like be so high activity as compared to his peers? Maybe that's something that we can investigate in our one-on-one and then figure out what the secret of his success is, and then generalize that across the rest of the team. And then similarly, we can kind of see that see kind of the current total of that right here by again having a total next to a trend there. Similar example, but in a ramping context, which I kind of mentioned earlier, a different, you know, consumption period or different point of consumption might be a different time when we say, hey, these rampers right here, I really need to make sure that they're coming into band. This is the time that I'm going to go ahead and look at that. Things like, you know, pipeline ownership over time, where things are ramping, where you're comparing individuals by having their start dates linked together, so we can kind of see, hey, this individual is ramping up just like everybody else. What happened here? This person's falling out of band as compared to their peers in ramp. Or, oh man, here's this guy right here. He's ramping way ahead of his peers previously. Why is that? Can we get all of our rampers to ramp that quickly? Because that would be really cool. And you can see the same thing here with respect to meetings. One way you kind of think about how you want to do dashboard design is you kind of lay things out ahead of time. This is kind of an example of how you can do that. Like, what's the metric going to be? What's the time period in the grouping? You guys can refer to this later. And then this is kind of what that looks like in practice. This is like a visualization of this thing that's been designed there. Another way you can do this as well is in a more tabular view, where you can say, hey, here's what our goals are, maybe for last week, this month, etc. But the important thing here is that we have visualizations that are in place that we can come back to on a recurring basis in order to consume that information, so we can consume it, reason against it. So observe it, orient about it, like reason about it, decide, and then take action. Right? So in this case, hey, man, your untouched ops are really terrible. Let's talk about that. And in fact, let's schedule some time for you to either close those out or maybe get on top of those. Just a little quick shameless plug for Atrium here before we progress. Literally, what we're talking about is all we focus on in Atrium. Our software is focused on everything managers need to be data driven, whether that's every single KPI that you need in order to manage an AE or SDR team. Importantly, proactive tracking of all these things. So proactive goal tracking being monitored statistically rather than visually, early warning alerting to kind of come to you and say, hey, there's an issue with this rep over here and here's why. And then the ability to make it really, really easy for individuals to kind of dig in on their own, but also for the software to do it as well. Like, hey, Pete, this rep has a booking, this rep's pacing poorly with respect to bookings. The reason why is because their win rate is off as compared to everybody else. Like their ASP and their op ownership is just fine. And more importantly, really what's driving their win rate problems is it seems that they have a much lower conversion rate out of pilot than everybody else. Right. And so the software just does that sort of thing statistically rather than relying on us to do like to paw through a bunch of needles. And so what we like to say about that is that Atrium helps sales managers use metrics and data to improve team performance. And we do that with hundreds and hundreds of different customers across the world. So really cool stuff. And literally all we do is we just focus. All we exist to do is to help managers get data driven and use metrics to improve team performance. Cool. So that's a little bit on Atrium there. Let's get back into our one-on-one discussion here. So wonderful. We now have this stuff that's in place. We have the assets that have been built. Well, how do we systematize orienting, right? What I like to call reasoning against it, getting good at reading the data. And so the approaches there is like, one, you got to detect what's going on. Two, you got to diagnose, kind of like go upstream and kind of root cause what's happening. And then we got to communicate with that. So we're going to kind of go through this. So first, with respect to detection, we have these visualizations that are in place, which is great. And now we have a cadence consumption of them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look and we're going to see where there are potential issues. And so ways to do that would be comparing an individual to their past performance, so like trends. We're going to compare them to their peers, so apples to apples, not apples to oranges, but we're going to compare them to their peers, and we're going to see if they're hitting goals or not, right? Or the inverse, right? So are they trending up as compared to past performance, or are they kicking ass as compared to their peers, or are they blowing their goals out of the water? So that's the first thing that we're going to do. And then moreover, once we see something, we detect an issue, then we like dig in, we diagnose. And so what we call that is kind of going upstream. We'll talk about this a little bit in the flow charts, but as an example, if an SDR is having an op creation activity or an op creation issue, why is that? We have to go upstream and say, is this an activity issue? Are they engaged in insufficient activity? Is it an activity mix problem? Right? Are they only emailing, or are they not calling at all? Or alternatively, is it a quality of activity problem? Is their email responsiveness rate way off as compared to everybody else? Is their email open rate really problematic? Is their connect rate on their calls really problematic? These are all things that are upstream of opportunity creation, that if we see that there's an opportunity creation problem, either at the end of a period or maybe even better yet, pacing towards that, we can go upstream and get ahead of it and say, oh, you know what? It looks like your subject lines are way off as compared to your peers, and that's what's driving the email responsiveness problem. Let's go ahead and fix that now on the 10th of the month, as opposed to waiting for the 30th of the month for you to underperform all your peers. And then lastly, what we need to do is we need to communicate these issues, right? So once we've identified and diagnosed these issues, we need to make sure that we're actually discussing with the rep, and then we importantly agree on next steps in a specific time frame. Not like, hey, you know what? Let's just think about maybe doing that. What are we going to do in a specific time frame? And then what we're describing right here, is that this is what one-on-ones are absolutely perfect for. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what this looks like in practice here. So here's an example. We've got a 4-tile dashboard here where we've got opportunity ownership right here. So this is last quarter, how many opportunities were owned by the various reps. We've got new opportunity inflow, which is new as opposed to just purely owned. We've got a win rate here, and we've got ASP here. And so by looking at this individual rep right here, Tank here, he's got a funny Disney character name. We can see that his opportunity ownership as compared to his peers is actually pretty good. In fact, maybe a little too good. We can see that his opportunity inflow as compared to his peers is actually pretty fantastic. You can also see that his win rate is fantastic as well. It would look to us, though, that the area for opportunity here for improving his performance might be getting his average selling price up. Right. So again, we can see he's kind of at the top of the pack with respect to these other things, but then down here on this one right here, he's a little down. And so this right here, very quickly, we can say, oh, okay, we're comparing to peers on this tile right here, and we can see that he's off as compared to his peers. Not everybody, and not dramatically so. And so this might be the area for improvement that we could use if we could get his average selling price 20% higher or 30% higher and in band with everybody else, or at least this top performer right here, that would, with this win rate, that would really drive out performance. And so this would be a coaching thing that we could focus on with this rep to say, hey, are you adding services? Are you asking for that incremental seat? Are you selling ahead of needs in this organization? Oh, you're hiring this many more people? Wonderful. Why don't we just buy for them right now, since they're going to be joining in 90 days or 120 days? We can prorate it, and then moreover, we can we can give you more of a discount, and then as a result, his ASP rises. So these would all be things that these are potential coaching actions we can take if we have gone and perceived that this is where there's a deficit there. Cool. So another good example of this would be looking for what I like to call issues and bright spots and totals and trends. So this right here, we can see, hey, you know what? This is meeting volume for these various reps. What do we got here? We got a bright spot right here. We've got this rep Cyril, who's taking care of business along with King right here. And then we've got somebody who's a little bit kind of like lax right here. I forget, what is that? Nutty the Vulture. So this is a great way of saying like, hey, you know what? Here's outperformance right here. We can talk about that in a one-on-one. Maybe take a screenshot of this, send it out to the team via Slack. Woohoo! Great job, Cyril. Similarly, we could take this same reports, this same visualization, and bring this to our one-on-one with Nutty in order to talk about like, hey, what's going on here? Similarly, we can see something similar in trends here. We're gonna say, hey, you know what? We have this person right here. What's this orange person's name? Brayer. We've got Brayer Rabbit here, and it looks like he's like declining over time, right? So we can see a trend, a decline in a trend here, and this would be another way that we potentially could get ahead of a potential problem here. So what we just talked about right there was using our eyeballs in order to do this. One thing that can be helpful is just to use software to do the statistical analysis of this information for you. This is again the benefit of something like a data-driven sales management software, where the software can literally do the monitoring for you. Right, so rather than using your eyeballs, the software just does the statistics for you. Like, hey, this individual has 40% fewer new opportunity inflow as compared to their peers. Or on the flip side, this person's taking care of business. This person has 75% more new opportunity inflow as compared to their historical trend. So again, rather than having to use our eyeballs in order to detect these things, software can do it for us, such that we can just take action appropriately. Like in this case, hey, high five, Harold. Good job. What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this prospecting program right here. Oh, okay, cool. Can you get with Angel and show them how to do that prospecting program, and we can potentially remediate this this new opportunity inflow problem that she's got going on here? Hey, thanks. Right. So that again, by being aware of this information, we can take action to improve performance before it becomes a problem. Some kind of examples of what this looks like in practice here would be, this is what I like to refer to as kind of going upstream. This is an asset that we put together here at Atrium around the drivers for both the bookings formula or the revenue formula and also the SDR pipeline formula. So in this case, if you have a bookings problem with an AE, well, what you would want to do is you would want to go upstream and see where is that coming from. Is it coming from the fact that they have fewer wins than they should? Is their win count fine? Is actually that their average selling price is too low? Or is it actually that their win count excuse me, that their win count and average sales price is fine, but their deal cycle is elongating and it's pushing things out. Where is the issue? Oh, okay. Well, let's say that the individual is light with respect to wins. Okay. Well, where's that coming from? Is it coming from a win rate problem? Right? They don't have enough. Their kind of batting average is lower than everybody else's, or their past performance, or are they just not getting enough at bats? Do they not have enough opportunities? Let's say it's a win rate problem, right? That they have plenty of opportunities that are kind of coming in pipe. And I guess in this case, earlier when we were talking about Tank, see his opportunity ownership is fine, his win rate is fine, it's his ASP that's light, right? So what we would do is we'd say, oh, okay, what's upstream of the ASP? Is it because his average op size is too small? Is it because his win rate on larger ops is problematic, like he's losing big deals? Is he discounting too much? Maybe in the converse situation where we have, actually, let's go back over here. Yeah, where we have these reps, right, that have a lower win rate. Is it because where are they having problems? Is it because they have an opportunity conversion rate problem? Where is that? Which stage is it at? Or is it because they have a pipeline hygiene problem? They're not on top of their ops enough, right? So this is a helpful mechanism by which you can inspect and figure out what the root cause of a potential issue is. And then once you know what that root cause is, or sorry, once you have a hypothesis of what that root cause is, what you can do is you can use your one-on-one to manage it. And so this would be an example here. Again, this is a filled out example of this meeting template, where what we've got here is, rep brings a topic to the table around his or her participation in the round robin, kind of talk about the fact that they feel like they're getting fewer ops than their peers. There's a manager topic, and then importantly, our current coaching area that we're focused on right now is pipe hygiene, right? And so what we're going to assign here, specifically untouched opportunity counts. And what we're going to assign here is a specific action item to calendar 2 1-hour blocks per week on the calendar, right? To make sure that it actually happens. As we like to say in our sales organization, calendar is destiny. So calendaring 2 1-hour blocks for pipe management using a specific report. Here's the report of your untouched opportunities. What I want you to do is during this time period right here, where we hyperlink that report in that meeting invite for yourself, you're going to go down that list and you're either going to close them out or you're going to engage them. And then moreover, you're going to BCC me on that outreach. And so this is very clearly prescribed next actions here. Going back to our UDA example here, a very, very prescribed next action here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to loop back at our next one-on-one, and we're going to evaluate whether or not that has that's remediated there. Since we're currently working on pipe hygiene as measured by untouched op counts, we're going to come back in 2 weeks after you've had 4 of those pipeline hygiene blocks on your calendar, and we're going to look at that report and we're going to see how many untouched ops are on there, right? And of course, this can be different on a per rep, per topic basis. In this case, hey, you're going to be managing your you're going to be managing your pipeline hygiene. In the case of this rep right here with the lower ASP, what you're going to do is you're going to focus on adding services to all of your deals, and you're going to be talking about it as early as possible in your meetings. And moreover, you're going to CC me on proposals that you send to your clients, specifically calling out services addition. Again, I'm just kind of making stuff up here, but the whole idea here is that we use data and metrics to diagnose, to detect the potential issue, form a hypothesis around what the problem is, and then we prescribe a resolution to it, make sure it's implemented, and maybe not just prescribe it, but I'll actually like co-create it. Like, hey, you know what? Why do you think that you're having this pipeline hygiene problem? Oh my gosh, I'm just overloaded from a meeting standpoint. The SDRs keep putting meetings on my calendar. I don't have time to manage my pipe. Totally, I hear you. Let's go ahead and block time on your calendar such that the chili piper queue can't put that on your calendar, right? So you actually block time out such that you can actually have time to manage your pipeline appropriately. And then maybe actually we take you off the router for a week. Does that sound like that would be helpful for you? Oh my gosh, that would be so helpful. Okay, well, my action item is going to be to take you off of the router. Your action item is you're going to block those times out for the next 6 weeks. Go ahead and ping me with a screenshot when you're done with that, because I want to make sure that it actually gets done. And then in 2 weeks, when we come back again, we're going to see how we've positively impacted our untouched opportunities and our pipe hygiene. And then ideally, we'll see our win rate raise over time. Does that sound like a plan to you? Yeah, that does sound like a plan. Man, you're a great manager. Hey, I went to Pete's webinar. Cool. So that's how we systematize looping back and making sure that not only are we prescribing and co-creating these next actions, but making sure that we're coming back and we're looking at them. So the big thing here, kind of the last section we're going to talk about here is using opportunities for coaching up our reps and kind of changing their behavior. And so what does coaching look like? Well, what coaching looks like is detecting an issue, forming a hypothesis of what it looks like, and then talking with the rep about it. It's not dissimilar to selling, right? Asking discovery questions. So rather than it being things like, hey, when's that Lockheed deal coming in? It's like, hey, what's concerning you about the Lockheed deal? Notice that's an open-ended question. It's not closed-ended. Are you concerned about the Lockheed deal? Nah, bro, I got it. Versus what is concerning to you about the Lockheed deal? Instead of, can you make this forecast bigger? It's, hey, I've noticed that your forecast is pacing behind. I brought data, right? I brought data to the conversation. Do we have ideas on how we can pull things forward, or alternatively, how can we potentially avoid this in the future? I need you to do more activity. Hey, I've noticed that your meeting volume is off as compared to where it has historically been. What are your hypotheses around what how that's happening? So again, I'm using data, so I don't have an anecdote. Like it's not opinions. I'm using data because it's observable right here. Like, hey, here's your customer facing meeting volume. You're off as compared to where you have been historically. What's driving that? It could be like, oh man, one of my family members is having a health issue and I need to contend with it. Oh man, how can I support that? Versus like, oh, I'm feeling a little burned out because I was having so many meeting volumes. Okay, wonderful. Maybe what we need to do is set some goals around having too many meetings, right? Or alternatively, it might be, yeah, you know what? I just I've kind of haven't been paying attention. And I let my prospecting fall off. That's a good call out right there. We can get ahead of it. And so rather than kind of like showing up and be like, hey, you need to do this thing right here, it's like, hey, I saw this thing. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what a potential solution to that might be, and then let's work on that together. Again, I'm a huge fan of what the closed loop guys talk about in 5 Sequences of Sales Coach. Coach is their acronym for challenge, outline, action plan, consequences, and hold accountable. Kind of what I was just talking about. Like, hey, here's the challenge we're saying. Your meetings are light. Your pipeline hygiene is not great. All right, let's outline that. Let's create an action plan for it. Hey, what are the consequences associated with this? Like, if you don't clean up your pipeline, what's going to happen? And then how are we going to hold this accountable there? Again, can't recommend that book enough. And if you guys would like a copy of it, we're giving them out. I think Nora's going to drop a link into the chat room there. So let's kind of give an example of what data-driven coaching might look like here with one of my reps. So this is some data-driven coaching example. So from an observation and a diagnosis standpoint, I observed that one of my reps had some lighter conversions than his peers at the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel. So this is actually, this is a card in Atrium that shows conversion rate. So from stage to stage. So how many, what proportion of the opportunities in a given stage, so like stage 1 or stage 0 or stage 3, progress to the next stage. And so this blue line right here is kind of team average, which is a really good thing to kind of compare an individual to. And then this rep right here in orange is the person I was coaching up. So what you can see is that his conversion rate out of meeting pending was a little bit light as compared to his peers. Yeah, his meeting conversion out of security review, or sorry, his op conversion rate out of security review is a little bit lighter than others, but not super much. Substantial problems around progression out of proposal, and then also things kind of falling out of the pipeline and contract out, which is never something that you want to see, right? So what we did was we worked on improving behavior at the top of the funnel. So this is actually a different visualization of the same KPI. So this is conversion from a given stage to the next, but instead of it being every stage, it's just focused on conversion rate out of discovery. And you can see this rep right here was kind of light as compared, like he was lighter here, and he definitely took a dip right here. And then we engaged in this coaching behavior, right, to improve their behavior at the top of the funnel around setting next actions, being prescriptive from a recommendation standpoint in those discovery conversations around next steps, and doing a better job of executing on discovery in general. And so what you can see here is like, boop, he popped up, his behavior, his conversion rate out of discovery jumped up very substantially after that coaching started to happen there. So he jumped up from a 50 to 60% conversion rate out of discovery to more than 80 to 90% range there, which was great. So this is exactly what you want to see. You see a problem, you're like, hey, you have a hard time hitting the curveball. Let's go ahead and get in the batting cage and let's hit a bunch of curveballs until you get good at it. Similarly, you're having problems progressing things out of discovery. Let's go ahead and work on that together, and then we're going to measure whether or not you get better at pulling stuff out of discovery. And what was even cooler about this is that as a result of them getting better at getting things out of the top of the funnel, this individual gave themselves way more at bats and got way more opportunities into live pilots as compared to his historical behavior, which eventually drove to, or which combined with a much higher win rate from the proposal stage. In this case, we also worked on his late stage behaviors. You can see his win rate from proposal had been, this was a particularly bad month, but his win rate from proposal had been about a coin flip, 50-50 flip, and that jumped up to more around the 80% range there. And so more top of funnel, or more opportunities making it through the top of the funnel, combined with better late stage win rate, drove much higher output. So in this case, you can see subsequent to that coaching behavior, great conversion from a top of funnel standpoint, great conversion from a down funnel standpoint as well, which led to a substantial rise in down funnel pipeline, because no longer is the rep's pipeline leaky. Instead, he's progressing it down pipe, getting to a nice stacked down funnel pipe, which subsequently led to a lot of bookings, which is exactly what we want. And so this is a great example of using data to diagnose a potential issue, coach around it, hold accountable to the resolution, and then measure whether or not the performance is coming, which in this case very positively was. So this is just one example of how data-driven sales coaching can work. But the impact here is to do it for each of your reps on the specific area where they have their biggest area of improvement, which is how we drive better performance of the organization. We can't just magically say like, oh, we need the forecast to be better, or oh, we need to have more bookings. Literally, like, your forecast and your bookings is the result. It's the summation of all the individual forecasts and all the individual selling behavior of your reps. And so the way that we can make our bookings or our opportunity creation or our forecast better is by improving 5%, 10%, 15%, 20% each of our SDRs, AEs, AMCSMs on the specific thing that they're struggling with, as indicated by inspecting, observing, detecting the issue, and then taking action. And again, this kind of goes back to why data-driven sales management is the future. And the good news is there are a bunch of organizations that are doing this already. The bad news is there are a bunch of people who are kind of resistant to this. They're probably not going to be around long term, but this is definitely the future of data-driven sales management. And you see it showing up everywhere in the market, whether it's like advanced athletics, which is something that a presentation I really like to give on kind of the permeation of advanced analytics in in high-end sports, whether it's basketball or baseball or golf or what have you, but also things like sales management as well. So just to kind of recap here, some tips on highly productive one-on-ones. Create that shared Google Doc. We have a template there that you're more than welcome to steal and make your own. Replace the Atrium logo, put your own logo in there instead. You'll look super fancy. Be purposeful about it. Like, what are we trying to do in this meeting? What's our specific coaching plan? Link to all these assets in your calendar invites. And then moreover, if you have a living agenda, like we were just talking about right there, just make sure that you have those assets hyperlinked to. So, hyperlink to your various reports directly from that, or like the specific thing that you're coaching on, whether it's pipeline hygiene or opportunity conversion rates or activity or whatever, hyperlink right there, so you can make sure to inspect it, and then importantly, block time on your calendar as a manager for prep and follow up. Cool. So I think we've got 5 minutes left here. Just want to give a thank you to everybody for coming and hanging out and listening to me wax poetic about data-driven one-on-ones. Again, if you're interested in grabbing some of these resources, all of these books are fantastic and get you a wonderful Coffees for Closers Yeti mug as well. Just go ahead and hit the hyperlink that I think Nora is going to drop into the chat room here. We have tons and tons and tons of other resources in our Data-Driven Sales Management Academy as well. And then lastly, Atrium literally exists to help managers do data-driven sales management. It takes about 90 seconds to set up an account for yourself. You just connect your Salesforce account. So I would highly recommend folks go ahead and do that and kind of see what's going on with their team. But I think that's it. Nora, what do we miss?
Nothing much. Just a quick note though. If you did ask a question in the Q&A, we did not get around to answering it. Pete and the Atrium team are going to follow up with you afterwards and make sure that we have answered all of your data-driven sales management questions, even the ones you didn't even know you had. With that, we are going to wrap up. First, really want to thank you all for attending. We loved having you here. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Atrium. You are awesome. We wouldn't be here without you. And major thanks to Pete. There's just like so much here, and I know this is going to up-level everyone's one-on-one game. The recording and key takeaways will be up shortly on our site. I'm also going to email them out to everyone along with the slides and some of the resources. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful holiday season and the rest of your week.